Manita chula making jefa moves. Welcome. Bienvenidos a Hard Mind Money Podcast, where we talk raw and real of what all humans look for in life, which is love, happiness, and success. I am Perla Casasnovas, daughter of Mexican immigrants, firstborn and educated American, born into a $10 crib. I saw my parents build several successful businesses, and their biggest asset was me, working with them since I was 7 years old. And little did they know, it was my life's internship. All I needed to know, and leaped into business at the age of 21, starting from my bedroom with my little sister's help and their trust. No fear, hard work, and many people's support made me a multimillionaire by the age of 24. I've been on this journey 16 years with 22 startups under my belt and revenues over 100 million. I can say that I am made of chingos of failures and wins. Mana, my life has not been easy, and I have had no choice but to become an expert at transforming adversity into triumph. No hay rosas sin espinas. And if you know me, you know I love humans. I have always learned so much from other people's stories, and that's why in this season I have invited special guests and I have a deep dive into their failures and wins. It's not what you have now, but what got you there. What was that pain point that shifted it all from you? And we learn from that. I will show you how they turned pain into power, building paths of resilience and prosperity. Esto está pica que se extiende. And I unveil secrets that were catalysts to who and how they became super successful. Keeping humble and knowing how to wear the crown is key. For me, it's loyalty over royalty, lealtad sobre dinero. Y aquí conmigo es la mera neta del planeta para que veas que todos somos iguales y somos puro amor. Stay tuned into this world because it's all about conquering your heart, mind, and money. Así que pícale play. Manas, bienvenidas. Welcome to Season 2 of our podcast, Heart, Mind, and Money. It's all about conquering your heart, mind, and money because it's not what you see, but it's the story behind the success. And that's why I've always been so curious in life. And that's why I think I am so good with humans and human relationships. And that is equivalent now in these days to emotional intelligence. And I can tell you that I am important and I can tell you that I'm so intelligent when it comes to human connections because I love to listen to people's stories, what made them, what broke them, what came out of them, what was the charm of life that they have now found because of the troubles that they lived. And so today I have a person that I'm going to present to you that is super close and dear to my heart that we met through Latina Empire. But this person I have baptized as my God Whisperer. There's always a person in your life that is going to take you closer to what you're looking for. And for this 2024, I manifested and I prayed so much in December that I wanted to get so connected spiritually. And little did she know that this lady that we're going to present to you today, she's my God Whisperer. And she has been a part of my journey in finding God and connecting to God and speaking to Him. It has been an incredible journey that I think that's an entire episode for itself. But ladies and gentlemen, manas y manitos, con ustedes tenemos a Eliza de McAllen, que va a compartir con nosotros muchas historias. She's an author. She's an incredible author. Let me tell you, books talk to your soul. And this woman has developed books that speak to children and our Hispanic cultura, our Hispanic heritage. And with no further words to say, but to welcome you to the Hard Mind Money Podcast, Eliza.
Woo!
Thank you. I need
excited.
like a drum roll. Thank you so much for being here. Let's cheers to that.
Toast.
Yes. There's no
Thank
telling what's
you.
inside these cups. It's a secret. But amiga, welcome, my God Whisperer, my friend. We've been on this journey together. It's now going to be 4 months. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, time flies when you're having fun, for reals. I want to know a little bit about Eliza, where you were born, your parents, where do they come from? Like, give me a little bit of Eliza's Hispanic culture in the Valley, in South Texas, because that's where I was born and raised, and this is where you were born and raised. So take it away, my friend.
Yes. So my name's Eliza Garza. I'm a children's book author born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley from McAllen, Texas. My parents were also born in McAllen, and I was one of the kids that grew up here thinking that this place was lame, that I couldn't wait to get out of here, that there was nothing to do. At school, you would just hear that, oh, let's go to San Antonio, let's go to Austin, let's go to school elsewhere, anywhere but here, because the Rio Grande Valley has nothing. And so growing up, I was embarrassed of my culture, embarrassed where I came from, because I would always hear that we were fat, we were obese, we were cartel. There was nothing good about us, and we were boring.
Take a look back at where are you growing up and where do you live, or when you were growing up, what were the stories around you? Because that has everything to do in the perspective that you had of life at that current time, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It made me kind of like shy away from where I was from. I didn't really fully embrace it. I was kind of like, I wasn't really proud of it. And growing up, I would hear people get made fun of for speaking Spanish. So if
and that's because we live in the border.
Yeah, we live in a border town.
We have the Rio Grande River, which is the border to cross into Reynosa, Tamaulipas in Mexico, 15 minutes away from where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I grew up hearing people get made fun of for speaking Spanish. And so I didn't want to get made fun of because I wanted to fit in. And so I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to speak Spanish.
Amiga, ¿y hablas español?
Yo sí hablo español.
Y tienes poquito acento. Fíjate, el español mío es diferente que el español tuyo.
Y la única razón que hablo español es porque mis abuelitos hablaron español conmigo cuando estaba chiquita.
Tus papás no.
No.
Wow.
Mis abuelitos.
So take me back to those years. Take me back to when you were 6 and 7 years old. You didn't embrace your cultura. So what were you seeing yourself as an American, but with what heritage?
I think I was seeing myself as the kids that I would watch on Nickelodeon.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's what you would envision.
Yeah.
So imagine being a kid, because it happens today.
Yeah.
That exactly what you went through happens today with our kids, except that they don't watch Nickelodeon. They watch TikTok and YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're not connecting with their true self because they're envisioning themselves in another culture, in another city. And so imagine when you get out of this and then you look at your surroundings, would you get frustrated?
No, I think I would just like imagine that I was that.
I know, but did you ever come to a point to realize that you were not in Nickelodeon, or you were not living in that kind of home that looked like Nickelodeon homes? Would that cause you frustration, disappointment?
As I got older into my teenage years, yes, but there was a happy medium that came along in between being a child and teenager, and that was Selena.
Selena y los Dinos? Como la flor. So what was your favorite song?
Probably Bidi Bidi Bom Bom.
Bidi Bidi Bam Bam.
Yes. So finally, when Selena came up onto the scene, I saw somebody that had long black hair like me. She had my same skin. She spoke my same language.
Oh
she
my
was
gosh.
from South Texas.
She was.
And I was like infatuated with her. As a little girl, I was still in elementary school. I had my mom literally go buy every single CD, even before, like, every single CD, we bought it, and I learned every song, and I would put on shows in the living room for my grandparents.
And how did that change in you? It changed Eliza Garza living in McAllen that was in a Nickelodeon kind of perspective life to now I know somebody that looks like me, that talks like me. And how did you change?
I started to embrace my Spanish more because I learned every single song.
There came a shift.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started to embrace my Spanish more. I started to be proud of everything that I was, like my hair, my long black hair. I didn't want to cut it. Like I loved it because it was like Selena's. And
when you started becoming that Eliza, did you go through shifts in friendships at school? Because before you used to be somebody else, and then you started in your evolution to more of Eliza with its cultura. Did you have a loss of friends?
No, I feel like I had the same friends there were like core friends that I always had when I was little. Same thing for middle school, same thing for high school. And those always stayed the same. So if some fell off, I probably didn't even really notice, because as long as the core was still in place,
correct,
I was like, good, you know.
Discover the Mana Lounge in the Hard Mind Money world, your exclusive gateway to empowerment and connection. A free global membership where women unite to empower and be empowered, crafting a sanctuary for growth and support. In this vibrant virtual manahood, dive into courses and resources dedicated to healing hearts, challenging minds, and uplifting your financial well-being. We all deserve to be super, super ricototas. The Mana Lounge is more than a community. It's a movement fostering self-discovery and skill development to help you shine in life. Join the forces with like-minded manas, hermanas, amigas. Explore the powerful organizations and become the most authentic version of yourself. Whether you're seeking global connection or local tribe building, find your place in Latina Empire Mana Lounge in the Hard Mind Money world. Click the link, pícale a link, in our show notes to access a transformative platform. Become a mana today and navigate this journey in your Hard Mind Money world. Your empire is your empowerment, and it's waiting for you. Eliza, and did you have teachers that would support you in this evolution, or were teachers embracing their cultura? Because I think that in those years when you were going through that, at the same time, I was living, and I grew up in Hidalgo, Texas, right, which is the border town to Reynosa. And that was like Little Mexico, right? So on the contrary, you're here 15 minutes away from me. You're more American Nickelodeon cartoons, and I'm over there watching novelas. And I didn't even know like such a thing existed to an all-American culture. Imagine, and we're 15 minutes away, right? Over there, we used to hear about gangs and stuff. Was there gangs and stuff going on in McAllen at that time?
Yeah, there was, but because as I got older, I was part of like sports and stuff like that. There was that dividing line of like, I wasn't really part of that. I didn't really hear much of it, but yeah, there was.
Okay. And what about other kids with the cultura gap that you had been through? Was there other kids identifying with that? With the cultura gap, like all Nickelodeon, English speaking, we don't speak Spanish.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was a thing.
It was a thing.
It was a thing.
You don't embrace being Mexican?
No.
Are your parents Mexican?
They're of Mexican descent. They were born here.
They're first generation? Your parents? Second. So you're a third generation American. Wow. The other day I met a girlfriend. She's fifth generation American. So you are very advanced in the American culture, because the United States history is roughly about 450 years old. So 3 generations, that's you, your parents that are right now, what, in their 60s or 70s?
60s.
In their 60s. Are your grandparents alive?
No.
So your grandparents would be how old right now? In their 80s or 90s?
They're in 90s.
So you're approaching 100 years of Americans, right? Versus me, I am a first generation American. I'm 37 years old. So we have about a 60-year difference of cultura, right? And so I remember that I was super Mexican. And when I went to school in a charter school, a magnet school, like 15 minutes north of McAllen in Edinburgh, I was like the little Mexican, and I would take my little lunch with tacos and papas con huevo, and people are over there like eating what was the ones I discovered, like the cheddar and cheese cookies, like the peanut butter cookies. Ay, qué elegantes decía. And I'm over here like opening up the
with
foil
your aluminum
with the tacos, yes. And so did when you encountered your heritage of your cultura, did you feel like you found gold? Or because in order for you to be able to find gold, somebody else has to value, like, oh my God, you know how to eat conchas, or you eat raspas. And I think that's where your grandparents had an influence on you, right?
Absolutely.
And now you're an author of kids' books that is called
Raspas con mi grandpa.
Raspas con mi grandpa. So let's talk about that. So your parents are second generation Americans. They're well off into the American life. You're looking at cartoons, more Nickelodeon, more everything American. You don't speak a lot of Spanish, but here are your grandparents that are pushing forward to bring Spanish into your life, to get connected to your cultura, to eat raspas. So tell us how that was like finding your true self, like that journey. You know, what did it bring to light?
So my parents always supported, me speaking Spanish, but they spoke English to me, and they always supported the Hispanic culture. And I grew up listening to Tejano music and stuff like that, Mas, and
would you hear the show of Johnny Canales, Take It Away?
Yes, I would watch that on Saturday.
I used to love that on Saturdays.
There was still a lot of mix of that. Like I would watch Looney Tunes, but I was also watching Johnny Canales, So it was like both worlds. I would watch novellas with my grandma. It wasn't until I was an adult that I really started embracing my culture. And when I say an adult, I don't mean like 18 or even in my 20s. I mean in my 30s, in my early 30s.
Way.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was part of me discovering my authentic self. When I started doing the internal work, which was already in my late 20s, early 30s, I started doing a deep dive into who I was.
Who you really are.
Yeah. And so I started peeling back layers, right? And honestly, if it wasn't for those layers being peeled back, I wouldn't be living my absolute dream and destiny that I am right now.
Incredible. And let me tell you that in South Texas, we are predominantly some kind of Hispanic, mostly Mexican heritage, right? And so a lot of us grow up with, in South Texas, almost everybody speaks Spanish. You eat a lot of tacos. You eat a lot of papas con huevo. There's a lot of stereotyping, but I think that because we live here, some of us really don't take it to heart. Like people are, my mom, she was saying the other day in an episode, she used to be called wetback. I didn't get called wetback, right? I think things changed a little bit later on down the line. But when you get out of South Texas, and I went to school in UT Austin for my master's degree, I was one out of two Mexicans in a class of 60, and everybody was predominantly white, Indian, Asian, black, and then two Mexicans, right? And so that's when you start really studying, like, we're different. We think different. We value respect. We value loyalty. We clinch together. Like family is gold, right? And those cultures, they don't have a lot of those things, and they don't have a lot of community value, right? So I started getting introduced to the words of imposter syndrome. I started getting introduced into things of, you forgot who you were in corporate America. Like, who really are you? Oh, it's because I don't know what my people eat. And then you travel to your native country, and you're like so in awe because it's an incredible country. But the whole time, that's been your gente. But something happened down the line where society kind of pushed back to your cultura, and you started silencing it, right? But I believe that if that happens to a person with its cultura, what doesn't happen to their personal goals? Embark on a journey of transformation with Latina Empire's Clarity Course. It's time to heal past traumas, shatter limiting beliefs, and awaken your true passion and purpose. When you know your destination, the path to the how becomes extremely clear. Clarity is not just a course, it's the gateway to a life where you heal, grow, and thrive, mana. Discover the power within you to create a future filled with joy, success, and so much wealth. Ready to begin your journey? Use the code HMMWorld for an exclusive 25% discount available only to our cherished podcast listeners. Visit our show notes for the link and step into your power. Latina Empire Clarity Course. Your new chapter starts now, mana. Así que pícale al link. What doesn't happen to their personal aspirations and emotions. And then the more that I I was in Austin and I started traveling around the country and being in New York, Latinidad and being Hispanic is a thing. And it's a thing because we usually are taught to have a lot of respect, so you don't talk out your emotions. You respect the elderly. You don't talk a lot about your goals. And so we have an issue right now in the United States where we have a $4 trillion GDP. We could be the 5th largest community if we were united as Hispanics, Latinos. However, we remain under misrepresented state, local, and federal governments and in corporate boards. That's because we start hushing our who we are, our needs, our wants, our requests, our aspirations. And it starts with something so naive as your culture. You start getting away from your cultura. And I'm sure that maybe some of those things that were hushing away in your cultura, they ended up hushing you away in your emotions that might have taken you to a destructive relationship somewhere in your life. Did that ever happen? And how did you realize that? Because a lot of people, when they find themselves in a toxic relationship, yeah, you're tired of being in a toxic relationship because you've been muting away your emotions, but it usually comes back related to how you were hushing away in your cultura, in your familia. So what can you tell us about that, Eliza?
Yeah, I think it's part of also, like you said, the cultura of like, we keep secrets in the family. We don't let everybody know certain things.
La gente no puede entrar a tu casa.
No, you know. We also, so yeah, all of these things kind of just bled into it, and it chipped away at my authenticity, which led me succumbing to less than what I was worth in a relationship, in friendships. It appeared everywhere. I was probably, 19 years old, embarking on the world, and found myself in a really bad relationship that left me not knowing who I was. It left me in a tailspin.
What were some of the things that you suffered?
Physical and emotional abuse. Anything. You talk about being in the boot camp of con men. This was it. It was like a liar, a cheat, a thief, a con man. I mean, everything that you can think of.
Are those things that started happening slowly, or it just things that he took you through in a short time frame?
No, I think it was like meeting someone, you're attracted to them because they are gorgeous. Physically.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Se llaman los diablos guapos.
Yeah, I had a diablo guapo. And so you're attracted to them, and they come in as Mr. Prince Charming, right? Back then, over 20 years ago, we weren't talking about love bombing. We weren't talking about gaslighting. These terms probably didn't even exist.
They didn't even exist.
So it wasn't in my vernacular. It wasn't in my headspace to know that that's what was happening to me now.
And then you probably were like, that wouldn't happen to me.
Yeah, I would be like, oh, no, that wouldn't happen.
And you were super in love. Was there a lot of passion?
Yes. It wasn't really, now that I look back and I have real love now, I'm like, that wasn't love. That was infatuation.
Lust.
It was lust. And I was infatuated.
And some people, that's where we lose a lot of our women. They get lost in lust. And they think that because you have a very good bed connection, oh, I'm so in love, I need him. But it's not even your love. It's your head's chemicals. There's chemical reactions, women, to certain men or women, whatever you like in life, that will bust a bubble when it comes to chemical reactions. And people confuse that emotion with love. And so how long were you in that relationship?
About 3 years.
Wow. And so from suffering verbal abuse to physical abuse, how long was it?
Probably like 2.5 years.
Almost at the end, right? And did this person say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I hit you," or how did that happen? What was the issue that was going on where, like, all of a sudden you get hit?
Questioning, putting boundaries, walking away, all those things would anger him. Plus, then I ended up finding out that this person was on drugs.
No.
So that didn't help the situation either.
So you thought you were dealing with a person in their senses, and then little did you know that he was on drugs the whole time?
Yeah, I had no idea. Like, it was just an evolution of, like, drug use. Like, yeah, okay, I would see alcohol, then I would see weed, then I discovered coke, then I discovered crack.
Oh no,
and it was an
Eliza.
evolution over the years. Yeah, I didn't know these things. I was young.
Wait a minute. Oh my God, pica que se extiende. So, how old were you?
I was about 19.
19 years old. And this gentleman?
Maybe like same age, 20.
So wait a minute. So when you see alcohol, it's normal because our parents drink at home, and alcohol, you see it, in the convenience store, right?
And on commercials everywhere.
On commercials.
Yeah.
Weed at that time was frowned upon. Mm-hmm. Weed was not legal the way it is now in almost all 50 states. So what did you think when you would see weed? Come on, not a big deal because maybe you heard of it in high school, or it was like a shocker for you? I'm just trying to get to...
No, it was more like I had seen it before at parties. People had it all the time. Like,
so that wasn't such a big deal.
No.
So then you let it pass.
Mm-hmm.
So alcohol, you let it pass, no big deal. Marijuana, you let it pass, not a big deal. You would see it in parties. You were already normalized for that. But then when you saw cocaine, what did you think there? Were you normalized to that too at that time?
No, not at all.
So what happened there? What was the conversation? Did you have a conversation with him like, hey, what's this?
Yeah, and it was deny. Like, what you saw didn't happen. He denied my reality.
So cállate la boca.
Basically, yeah. Like, making me feel crazy. Like, you didn't find that. It's not mine. I didn't do it.
Super liar.
Mm-hmm.
And you believed him.
No, I didn't believe him at first, but afterwards it was almost like I kind of just gave into it. Like, ugh.
Yeah,
like,
what happens is that a lot of these men, they tire you with their questions and with their denials that you just give up. And you're like, yeah, whatever you want. But then, okay, cocaine, but crack cocaine?
Yeah, that was like a shocker.
A la madre. I've never seen that myself ever. Like, I'm sure that's extremely scary. I didn't know that
the tools that I was finding were because they were doing it. I didn't know that.
No.
Until one day I caught him in the act of doing it.
No.
And then my mind was just like, is this crack? Like, is this what crack is? Like, I was trying to put it together because I didn't know. I'd never seen anyone do it.
Me duele.
Yeah.
And he was high?
Oh, super. He started getting emaciated.
What is that?
Like, super skinny, super gaunt, like...
Okay, let's dive in here. What was this gentleman going through in his personal life that took him to use these kinds of drugs?
I don't
know. So you're parallel at that age, you're just a girlfriend or you live with him?
I'm just a girlfriend.
So you come in and out of his place, right? And you have a job or you go to school?
I have a job and I go to school.
Okay, and you live with your parents?
Yes.
Okay, so very important to always have your kids grounded. Like, not like on a leash, pero como que se van, pero como que los recoges, right? Because the role of the parents is very, very important. But what was this gentleman going through?
I don't know.
Do you know?
I mean, he had a great family.
He did?
Yeah, he had a great family.
But he had to have had some traumas.
I still don't know what they were to this day.
Oh, yeah, I want to know, Eliza.
I know that he was a complete...
I want to know where he lives and I want to talk to him. Quiero saber por qué le pasó. So what do you think was happening with him?
I really don't know. I don't know. I was too young to be like, hey, what are your traumas? Like, I didn't know anything about that.
You know that this story hits very close to home because as we speak, there's a young lady that's a daughter of a very good friend of mine. She's 18 years old. She's a UIL competitor, very sharp little girl. Mm-hmm. She fell in love with a very good kid from school that comes from a very good family. And so the parents were in support of the relationship. And somehow, the little boy went south and he became a drug addict. So now he's dropped out of school. And the young lady is very in love with this gentleman. And she's using drugs. She's using drugs. She's out of school. And there's no telling, like, how, where, when, what happened. And so I think that parents have to be extremely connected to their children. In this day and age, I think that we have to be very raw and vulnerable about these stories, because I think that 20 years ago when you were going through this, these were like splurges of things that were happening, but people would keep silence a lot. Like, did you ever talk about these things to somebody?
Nope.
For what reason?
Shame.
Shame, embarrassment, correct. And for that reasons, in the last 20 years, the use of drugs in kids, I'm talking about people from 13 to 18 years old, has quadrupled in numbers. The DEA has released numbers that 70% of high school seniors are already using drugs and alcohol. That is terrible. And it happens like in a just like in a moment, because you were a good girl. You were living in a family home, right? You were getting connected to your cultura. Your grandparents had a lot of influence in your upbringing. So a lot of the microphone gets away. A lot of there's like a ghost in here. Spooky. So there's a lot of influence from your grandparents. So a lot of values, a lot of grounding. You felt very connected. So a super handsome demon comes, very charming, from a good family. You start getting involved with him, but he had a dark past and a dark life. And then little by little, 3 years have gone by, and now you've been encountering like little issues. Alcohol, not a big deal. Marijuana, not a big deal. Then cocaine, then crack cocaine. Then you're like, oh shit, like what am I doing? Did you ever get offered any of these drugs?
They were always around me. I think what's crazy is that nobody really offered me anything. But
why do you think that is?
I think because even though I was in that situation, my light was still speaking for me.
I think that happens because I feel the same way. I was never and have been never in junior high and high school, and I was very popular and I was extremely social because I am an extreme extrovert. I was never offered drugs. But I think that being you, recognizing who you are and your values, scare off those people. So talk about being authentic, talk about knowing yourself, talk about having your self-worth. Even though you find yourself in those crazy situations, you're there, but they don't come to you. You see what I mean? And so even though you were emotionally involved with this gentleman, then he never tried to lure you in.
No.
Because he saw that you were very grounded then.
Yeah. I think the best things my parents ever did for me was give me the gift of Jesus Christ, because I grew up with God in my heart. And so therefore I always had a foundation and a moral compass. I always had a moral code. Even though I had strayed, that still small voice inside of me would still speak to me, speak for me, even when I couldn't speak for myself.
Wow, that's powerful, Eliza. So you considered yourself strayed during that time of your life?
Absolutely.
How did you stray? So you had a memory of values. You had that in you. God was always within you. But were you mute? Were you like in a bubble? Like, what was keeping you in this bubble? Like,
I just wanted to do my own thing.
So you were experiencing.
I was like going through rebellion.
Okay. So what would have been of Eliza if that gentleman who you thought you loved at the time would have offered you crack cocaine and you would have tried it?
I knew never to try it because I knew that it was highly addicting. And I always thought, I'm going to get out of this. I just don't know how.
Wow.
And if I try it, I might like it. And then I won't be able to get out.
Exactly. And that's where we lose a lot of people today.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm sorry, you get emotional, but I think that you're recognizing how life could have been different.
Oh, yeah.
And this is, wow. And I'm feeling you, so now I'm tearing. This is where we lose so many lives because our kids today are so disconnected from their authenticity and their self-worth.
Yeah.
That one bad decision will screw you up forever.
Mm-hmm.
So your fear of God, your love to yourself took you out of that situation.
Yeah. And my mother was always praying for me, always. So it's not only important for a parent to stay connected to their children, but it's important for a parent to cover their children with prayer, because I wholeheartedly believe that me getting out of that situation was a miracle. I couldn't physically get myself out of it. I knew up here and in here that I shouldn't be in it, and I couldn't siphon myself out. It's almost like if someone had me shackled to this man.
And I think now that, I am, Jesus Christ is in my life, and thank you so much for being that bridge. I heard from a priest in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City that it's not that demons are stronger. It's that people are weaker.
Mm.
And so when you find yourself in a very toxic situation, you think that there's no out. You actually think you need this. It happened to me in my relationship with the gentleman that I was.
Yeah.
It was like, I need to make this work. Like, this is my test of life. I need to make this work. Like, how am I, not gonna... Perla makes everything work. I need to make this work, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's when you start self-sabotaging your beliefs. So Eliza, how at 19 years old, you were living with your parents knew you were in a very bad relationship. Mm-hmm. You were with a gentleman that was now losing a lot of weight. You're seeing the struggles of using such a hard drug like crack cocaine, right? Mm-hmm. How did you get out of that? What happened, or what broke your goggles that you said, I'm out, like, this is it, I'm done?
I couldn't. He went to jail, and that's how I got away.
He went to jail for what?
For the rap sheet of stuff that he had. It finally caught up to him.
And that's how you were able to leave him?
Yeah.
Well, that was a blessing from God.
Yeah, that was a blessing. Mm-hmm. And it's what needed to happen for him, too, because he had already had this long rap sheet of stuff. And he would always find himself out of it, get himself out of it.
And did this gentleman recover, or he just got worse? Do we know anything of him?
No, I believe he got worse.
Oh, okay. So, I believe since 2019, I not manifested. What do you say when you see things, but then they happen into the future?
You envisioned, you prophesied.
I prophesized.
Okay.
And I started a book, and the book is called Love Soldiers. And I prophesized that we are currently living in an emotional sickness war. And the emotional sickness war is where souls get lost because of so much pain in their heart that they try to self-medicate their pain with vices, because we are spiritual humans living in a physical world. And in this physical space, the vices start with simple stuff that is so normal to us, like food, abuse of food, abuse of sugar, abuse of carbs, abuse of Tylenol PM, abuse of Advil, abuse of anything. Then your body builds tolerance, and then you abuse alcohol, you abuse a day drug, you abuse pharma, like your antidepressants, right? Like Xanax and stuff like that. And then from there, your body starts building more and more tolerance, that then you just need bigger and heavier things. Hence the story of this gentleman, right? And then these lost souls in this emotional sickness war, they can't find their way out, and they just get lost forever. Mm-hmm. So when I see people that are lost in anything, related to an excess of a vice, it's not that they're bad people. Don't judge people. You don't know what took them there. That's where we need to focus. We need to, in order to stop this issue, we need to somehow, as humanity, come together, be vulnerable about these stories, because it could happen to our kids. You know, you can have a super strong girl and somebody creeps in, and through lust and love and etc., they start putting things in your kids that you don't even know. It could happen through friendships. Especially nowadays, even with TikTok, even with Snapchat, even with Instagram. Like, we have to be awake of these things. Our kids are no longer like little cartoon kids. Our kids, 10, 11, 12 years old, they already know a lot of things about drugs. Kids as little as 6 and 7 years old already know what it means, you know, to you're a boy and you love a boy, or you're a girl and you love a boy. We need to normalize conversations. We need to be real about conversations and how drugs creep in our kids and our society, because that's where we lose souls. And when we lose souls, we have a deprived future, right? So people like you and I that have healed from toxic relationships, that have championed forward, that have found God or found the strength in your spirituality, we need to go and be vulnerable about our story to go and help other souls get out of that emotional sickness war. So when do you come back, and what is the shift that says, I'm here, I love myself, I have found my authentic self? Like, what happened?
Oh gosh, it's been an evolution over the past 2 decades. But after that, I started to pour into myself. I came back to my roots, which were God, and I started to evolve in that aspect. And as I grew in God, I also grew in myself, because we are together. You know, like, we are co-creators, him and I, in my life. You know, it's not just all up to him, and it's not just all up to me. And so I started evolving in that aspect. And I ended up getting into my 30s and finding out more about who I was, because that's when I started doing more of a deep dive into self-reflection and internal work. And that's when topics of conversation would start coming out like this on Instagram or Facebook, you know, and the world kind of started talking more about mental health about 10 years ago.
Correct.
And so that's when I also started to do that type of work. So I wasn't only doing the spiritual work, I was doing the soulic work, right? And I started to do that. And ever since then, it's just been a journey. But what brought me into my authentic self, the bang that really, really pushed me in and drove it home for me, was a business partnership gone bad. On the outside, it looked like the worst thing that was ever happening to me. But on the inside, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm so grateful for it.
And that's where the shift happens. And that's why I tell people, embrace problems. Problems make you go and open the Pandora box, where you don't know what gems you're going to find out of those problems. So tell me a little bit about that.
So I started a business during the pandemic at the island, and I partnered with somebody maybe a few months after that. It was going really well. Developed into a franchise in like a year and a half. And then, you know, as we were about to launch, things went south very quickly. And so
About to launch.
Yeah, about
So
to launch.
about to have, you know, the grand opening.
Nationwide, like sell franchises to other franchisees and stuff like that. Oh my
God, okay.
Yeah, so it went south, and it went south very quickly. So after that, I found myself having to not only go a separate way from my business partner, but also I found myself with the death of a dream, because at one point that was my dream, to flourish and grow that business and take off with it, you know. So I went my separate way, and I found myself having to resuscitate finances, a team, myself, my family. We had all gone through it together, and it was just really challenging. And through that, when I was going through that, I thought, okay, there's a chance that I can lose everything, which I did lose everything. But I felt back then there was a chance that I could lose everything. And if I did, I needed a plan B. And that plan B was going to be to write children's books, because I always knew that this was what I wanted to do. I always knew it was part of a calling that God had on my life. I had just never done it. But that pain and that pressure cornered me and I wrote it within like an hour, came out, I had it. And through the challenges, through the rebuilding, through everything that I was going through, I kept going back to this little book and, you know, fleshing it out, getting it edited, getting it illustrated. And I would be like, man, maybe I should shelf this for later. I have so much going on with all this craziness and chaos. But the book would bring so much light that I couldn't help but go back to it. It brought me so much good energy. And so I went back to it and finally finished it. And 1 year later, on the same date that I was muscled out of my business, the book published on the same date. And after that, it just took off.
That's incredible. And so those are the gems that come from problems. Problems are there for you, not against you. You have to run to them. You have to gut them out, solve them, because problems cannot be unsolved. Solve them. But in the pursuit of solving the problem, you develop so many skills that make you like have more pins on your chest.
Yes.
Right? It's like, now I'm resilient. Now I'm a fighter. Now I know what the legal system does. Now I know how to make money. Now I have a book. Now I have a new company. Now I have a purpose. That's what it's about. It's like we're oysters. Like you're under the ocean and you're going through so many like waves of commotion. Imagine down the ocean, but you just clamp down on one idea and you're building on that little grain of sand. And then when you're going through predators that want to eat your oyster, like what's inside the oyster, they want to attack you. Then you have to chameleon that you're already like a dead oyster, and then you hide you hide under the sand, and you're like trying to make it work, all because the oyster is clamping down on building the most beautiful pearl. And once that oyster opens, you release that pearl to the world, which is your new skill set, your newfound purpose, your new company, your new relationship, the new husband, the new whatever it is, right? But it all comes from like polishing that diamond. How do diamonds get built?
Fire.
Diamonds get built under pressure, under the pressure of the earth. And then this beautiful thing gets built, and then they have to still fire it up. They still have to cut it. And then like you've got one of a kind. And that's what our problems are. They're to make us one of a kind. And it doesn't mean that you're going to have a perfect life forever. Like you went through that issue with this gentleman when you were 19 years old. And then you had a good life, still trying to find yourself. And then in your mid-30s, you go through this crisis again. And now you're a book author and you read to little books. So tell us what these kids' books do to kids.
So the interesting thing is that I was a person that shied away from my culture, and now I wear it bold on my sleeve, like it's like something that is a huge part of me, because when I was writing the book, I thought, I really want to highlight our Spanglish language. I want to highlight our culture, because if I can, and if the child can see themselves in the book early on, then it will normalize the culture and language for them.
Correct.
And there will be less shame and embarrassment attached to the culture, because they'll identify with it early on. They'll embrace it. So the books are all about connection, creating family bonds, and love, really, and about our culture. So, yeah.
So I congratulate you for doing that, because I think that was one of the challenges that you lived. And so when you accept the challenge and you forgive yourself for being ashamed of your cultura, look at what a beautiful thing you've created. It is about 30% of the U.S. American population has a Hispanic heritage. So you are speaking to about 60 million people. In that people, mixed little kids with teenagers, with young adults, with adults and elderly. But you have an entire population of kids that today are either very connected to their roots and feel odd and outnumbered, or you're speaking to kids that don't know even what their cultura is about. So what you're doing is huge, because if you don't know who you are and you start shaming away from your authentic self, it becomes very normal to then shy and stay quiet about your needs, wants, and aspirations. You see what I mean? Because it comes from the same root of emotions.
Absolutely. I agree.
So as you're going to schools where Eliza goes and tours 5 to 10 schools every week, she talks to thousands of kids every month in the school systems of South Texas. Invite her around the country, wherever you are. She's talking to our kids, and I am more than delighted that my children, I have 4, get to know what it is like when the snow cone man would drive around the neighborhood, and I, like my little grandpa too, would give me $1 or $2 to go and buy the raspa, ding, 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 you know, with the little song in the little van. And so I can't wait for your other stories of books that you're going to come out with, of relating kids to their culture, to their familia, to the important things that matter in our culture. Because whatever culture you're from, you need to embrace your culture, because that's your authentic self. You know, I was born with tacos. I was not born with caviar. Do I eat caviar? Yeah, I eat it. I actually went to a restaurant and it was a caviar taco. I felt so cool because it was like the raza but the chic in me, you know, and that was too cool. But you can be your authentic self wherever you stand, so as long as you're in love and in tune with your cultura. And so, Eliza, thank you so much for sharing the evolution of that Eliza, always being rooted to Jesus Christ, which is very important, or whoever is your spiritual ground. I want to thank you for being vulnerable. We need more of this, so thank you for inspiring us with your story. And if you're out there, get connected to that little girl. Where were you? How did you feel? How was your upbringing? When did the shift happen? And what has happened from that shift? Because a lot of people go on sharing the success, and they forget to teach people the how, the where, who, and when. And it's like, you didn't build a house without cement in the bottom. Like, somebody had to frame the cement. Somebody had to put plumbing in there.
The building blocks.
It's not like, oh, what a beautiful mansion. No. How did it get made, right? And so I believe that we are all mansions. We are all, you know, the big success that we're looking for. But pay attention to the story behind the success. So, Eliza, to many more books to come, to many more hearts to conquer, and to get many more kids connected to their cultura. My friend, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much.
So, as we close off this episode, what are the 3 things you would like to share with our manas and manitos that are listening to us when it comes to our children? Because that is one of your legacy things that you're building for the world.
I would say, 1, forgive yourself for the things that you did when you did not know how to love yourself, when you did not know any better. You were doing the best you could with what you had, where you were, and that's it, you know, and that translates into the hearts of your kids, because if you're holding a grudge and you're beating yourself up, then that's going to
spill over to your kids,
onto your children.
I was going to close already, but that's a very big point, Eliza. Our kids are registering in their subconscious what they're listening to at home. So if you're a parent and you're going through issues financially, physically, emotionally, etc., and you have a lot of frustration, do not take it out on your kids, because that's registering onto your kids, and believe it or not, it matters. And you might not see it. You probably think that they're like watching cartoons and not paying attention, or they're on their iPad. They're listening. And I'm sure you see that it plays a role in the kids' lives.
Oh, absolutely. I meet tens of thousands of kids every month, and I see a lot. And so